Hello, fellow stargazers. Bryan Colter here, Evolutionary Astrologer, for your horoscope report for the upcoming Leo full moon that happens on January 28th. And I very much see this full moon as the cherry on top of what has been a very heated, explosive month, January 2021. I talked a lot about the reasons for that in my last YouTube video, also at the newsletter that I released at the beginning of the year. So I do have a monthly newsletter. If you're interested in joining that, there's a link below in the show description. I do talk about the upcoming, in written form, obviously, the upcoming astrological weather for the month, the core evolutionary intentions, and also announce upcoming events and sales going on. So if you're interested in that, the link's below. But what I was describing basically was that this month, January, and even February to a certain degree, are some of the most charged months of 2021. So we really started off with a bang. And I used the imagery of throwing a lit match into a pile of fireworks. It's explosive, obviously. It's unpredictable. You got to duck your head. You don't know what's happened. You run, maybe fear for your life if you're close enough to the pile. And also it's very colorful. It's been a very colorful month for a lot of reasons. And the reason for that astrologically is, for starters, we have Uranus, the god of earthquakes and lightning bolts. There's that electric feeling with Uranus. And Uranus, at least planetarily speaking, is one of the main headliners of 2021 and even into 2022. And that's because of the Uranus-Saturn square. So I'll say some more things about that because that's the overarching theme of the year. But here we have that god of earthquakes and lightning bolts, which deals with unpredictability, things happening very sudden, didn't see it coming, shock, trauma. It deals with rebellion, revolutionary spirit, rule breaking. And of course, rule breaking can lead to being criminality or being a criminal. That's the shadow side of Uranus. The rebel turned rancid, starts breaking the rules in a very destructive way. And then destructive's a good segue word to the planet that's holding hands in the sky with Uranus right now, which is Mars, the war god, the lesser malefic. So the god of lightning bolts and earthquakes dancing currently with the war god. Warriors deal with anger, aggression, righteous indignation, war, in your face, aggressive competition. That's all the negative side. Those are the very shadow side, egoic expressions of Mars, which very much come out to play if we aren't proactively engaged with working with the lesser malefic Mars on our terms to help us evolve. As both the malefics, Saturn and Mars, they do a great job if you give them a job to do. They get us into trouble when they're just sitting around unemployed, and that energy is just running rampant within our psyches and trickling out in less than beneficial ways. So the shadow side combination of these events is aggressive criminality, it's explosive acts of rebellion towards this main goal of freedom. There's nothing wrong with freedom, but if we do it from a place of anger, that's coming from a low consciousness set of emotions. And it won't help anybody. It'll only hurt yourself because it's linked to stress. And stress is very harmful to us and to other people. And where our attention goes, energy flows. We are superpower, soul incarnate. And we have the ability to grow energy, whether it's emotions or thoughts or whatever. We have magical powers. And if we focus our willpower and intention on more destructive, low consciousness of thoughts and emotions, they only grow in power. And of course, they form sort of group power with other people. People come together and it just feeds off each other and it grows and grows and grows. So we have to be very careful of that shadow side. And we've been seeing it in abundant form in this month. We saw that on the beginning of the month on the 6th at the Capitol in the U.S. We're seeing it now in places like the northwest of the U.S., places like the Netherlands. And we want to look at that with compassion, of course, and realize that the pain and suffering of these people that are manifesting the lower octave expressions of this energy, it does stem from just that, pain and suffering. They've been dragged through the mud. We all have over the last year plus. I mean, even much longer than that. but it's gone to insanity levels of the pressure that we're feeling as the walls close in on us. And a lot of us are feeling like caged animals. And if we don't know how to work with the energy and focus it in a very positive way towards our evolution as people and souls, since that's the whole reason we're here, it can turn into a mess. Now, the positive intention of Uranus and Mars, is we contemplate the higher octave expression of Mars, which is courage, bravery, setting healthy boundaries, standing tall, standing strong, and going in directions that scare us towards becoming more courageous, facing our fears to evoke courage. And then Uranus involved, yes, it's the planet of rebellion, but it's also the planet of uniqueness, the planet of freedom, of individuality. So there's nothing wrong with individuation. Individuation, a fancy word, but it basically means becoming a truer version of ourselves. It's about authenticity. And it's so easy being trained in a world and born in a world that very much gives us pressure to conform to cultural and familial expectations. So we have who we really are, our soul personality, and who we've been trained to be. Okay? So Uranus energy is like, I'm not going to be your dancing monkey anymore. I'm going to be myself. And a lot of us, usually it's more subconscious, but we have fears, we have resistance to being an individual, to being unique, because we're programmed from birth to conform to expectations of, whatever, groups of people or individual people. So facing your fears to be stronger in yourself, who you really are, and shedding away those layers of that's basically learned behavior. And this itchy electric explosiveness within us has been building, because, and this is where we get to the overarching theme, I hinted at it before, we've come from a heavy-duty year of Capricorn, basically, and now we've entered into a heavy-duty year of Aquarius. And that's reflected by the planets being heavily in those signs respectively, but it's also reflected in the fact that the major feature of this year and even into 2022 is the Uranus-Saturn square ongoing. And Uranus rules Aquarius. Saturn rules Capricorn. Okay, Saturn actually is the classical ruler of Aquarius as well. But, so Saturn's been very strong last year, very strong still. It's been in its own sign for a long time now. But Uranus is the ruler of Aquarius. So we have this interplay of both things. Capricorn, Aquarius, Saturn, Uranus. Okay, this archetypal field is activated in a big way. And this is the tension between the strict control mechanisms of the planet and us trying to break free from that, hopefully in less destructive ways, kind of Gandhi style, putting our peace foot forward instead of putting our destructive foot forward, and breaking free from the chains of conformity, from the chains of control and greed and power. So we're trying to break free. We're trying to unlock the jail cell and have some breathing room, head first into being sovereign beings. And then we started off this year, January, with a bang, with all this heat, all the fireworks. But this is the core reason underlying it. Meanwhile, we have Neptune square the nodes. I don't want to get into that. I've talked a lot about it. I don't want to bore you, But in a pistachio nutshell, that adds a mix of, let's say, confusion, disorientation, don't really know what's going on. We're getting shocking information. We're having realizations. And also people are manifesting the dark side of Sagittarius, which is fixed ideologies and belief systems. We're in a very religious time, and I don't mean necessarily about God. It seems to be the religion of politics nowadays. Also, the dark side of Neptune square the nodes is deceit. So we're in this Aquarian age now, this age of information, but now it seems to be very much the age of disinformation, as we're kind of muddled in this foggy mess that is Uranus square the nodes. And that's the negative side of it. The high end, the intention, the best way to work through it is a deepening of your spiritual life and meditation, so you can try to achieve truth amidst all the falsehoods through going within. The truth is within. So, but it does add a lot of this murkiness and confusion and deceit and dishonesty, just to add it to the soup here. So we've started off with a very confusing bang. Now we've hit this Leo full moon. Full moons, as I've talked about in a lot of videos, maximizes how intensely we feel. Okay? You know, teachers talk about this. Their kids are more rambunctious on full moons. Police officers talk about this. There's more crime during full moons. Why is that? Because overall, generalizing here, we're more reactive emotionally, especially when the full moons are going through a very sensitive place in our birth chart. You know, that's why it's so important to learn about your chart. And keep hinting at my website coming out soon. I'll be doing a lot of teaching on that new website, and I'll teach you how to look at your own chart and try to figure out, you know, when I do these bi-weekly lunar videos, you can kind of figure out where the new moons and the full moons are in your chart and give a more specific understanding of how it applies to you. So anyhow, emotions are running high already with a very heated, charged month. I'll even add to that reactivity, emotional reactivity, which we're trying to be aware of and not get caught up into that, especially on the negative spectrum, okay? Because those negative emotions will be stronger now, and we want to do our best to become disinterested in them so we don't feed them and harm ourselves and other people. We complicate this further by the fact that Venus, the goddess of love, the relationship planet, is in an almost exact conjunction with Pluto. They're just a couple minutes of arc away from each other. It's near exact. Pluto, the lord of the underworld, the god of hell, next to poor, sweet Madam Venus. You know, it doesn't sound like a match made in heaven. And it can be testing, let's just say that, because, you know, the so-called god of hell represents our inner hells that we create. It's our own wounding, our own trauma, which is coming out in full battle dress now during the full moon and all the other events and the reasons I've described during this whole video. So wounding coming out in our interpersonal relationships a little bit more than usual. Again, generalizing here, it depends on where it's at in your birth chart and if it's interacting with sensitive planets in your chart. So acting as a sounding board for your own wounded places in relationship, you know, being more reactive in relationship. Now, this can turn into a disaster, obviously, as forks get embedded in the wall and flying plates. It can turn into a full-blown psychodrama if we allow it to. On the high end, we can go through beautiful levels of transformation, regeneration within the relationship, a deeper level of bonding and commitment, because both these planets are in the sign of Capricorn, commitment and vows and integrity and lifelong commitment. So through the healing, we transform, and then we get to a deeper connection. But that requires vulnerability. That requires being in the present moment, realizing our own part in the drama, and then working through it together constructively, proactively, with the ultimate goal to heal. Now let's talk about this beautiful Leo full moon. We can leverage this big-heartedness that we're feeling now. That's a positive way of saying that emotions are on high. This big-heartedness to leverage the highest octave expression of Leo, which is Leo the lion, the king of the beasts, Leo the performer, Leo the child, you know, the innocence of the child. I'm naming this video Returned to Innocence. Now, why might we need to return to innocence? Oh, because again, we've been dragged through the mud. And here, the moon itself, full moon, is opposite Saturn. Saturn in every culture around the world that's had astrology is represented as the old guy, you know, father time, or the wizard archetype, you know, or mother time. Nobody ever says that, but they probably should, you know, just to be PC. But it does represent wisdom, maturity. And the moon is about our emotions, our heart, our soul. The moon's much more about being in touch with our inner child. Saturn is much more about being mature, much more about being in touch with your inner tough old bird rather than your inner child. So here they are in a dead opposition on this full moon as well. Okay, so we are trying to soften the battle-hardened heart, which over the last year plus has calcified a bit. As we've felt the walls closing in on us, it's so easy to give up. It's so easy to become depressed, which is the shadow side emotional connection to the planet of Saturn, because it feels very weighty and oppressive. As I said, it was the year of Capricorn. It was also the year of Saturn, because Saturn was in its own sign. So, in the face of all that, as we go into the depths of despair, some of us more than others, obviously, it's so easy for the heart to harden, to become braced for one damn thing after another, to get into this place of stoic acceptance of the crappy hand we've been dealt. And with compassion, I get it, understandable. For a lot of us, life has not been easy. It has sucked. I don't mean to laugh about it, but I'm trying to get to the place of understanding the cosmic joke about all this, recognizing that we're living in an illusion. We're here to learn, grow, and evolve. We got to do the best we can, even with a crappy hand, So now, full moon in Leo, which is the sign of self-expression through vulnerability, learning to soften that battle-hardened heart, return to your inner warmth. Leo is a fire sign. So return to your innocence, to your joy, to your forgiveness, recognizing with compassion that yes, it's been rough, but we're in this together. Let's roar like a lion together. Tweak the metaphor a little bit and say, let's cry like a lion together. Let's soften that battle-hardened heart, So on some level, it is about self-nurturing. It always is with the moon. But the best way to do that is in Leo method, which is practicing vulnerability. I just talked about, wounding coming out in interpersonal relationships. When you're in a relationship, a close one, when you're in stressful situations, all the pre-existing, issues within the relationship, love is hard, classically, we all have them. They tend to come out in a more pronounced way when we're feeling the stress. We've all been feeling the stress, so there they are. We're getting wounded more easily. Leo says, let's be vulnerable. Let's not feed into our trigger mechanisms, our defense mechanisms. And let's not feed into dark side Saturn, which is a stoic acceptance of the hand we were dealt. Let's soften, Let's connect. Let's be warm. Let's create. The sign of the performer, as I said. That's the best way to practice vulnerability through self-expression. It's a very artistic sign. So if you have a creative hobby or interest, it's a perfect time to be focused on that. Full moon is about full manifestation. So maybe it's about bringing some creative work of art to full manifestation. That's a beautiful way of working with Leo energy in a heart-centered way. Putting your heart on paper, putting your joy on paper or even your pain on paper helps you to get it out as you roar like a lion. And the more you do this, the more you develop this present tense way of being utterly lost in the moment of creation. Take it up a higher octave even more, express it to other people. Leo people, for you Leos out there, you need an audience, so to speak. Even if it's only an audience of one and it's your best friend, which of course is a pretty safe audience, but it's still an audience. So yes, it's about the creative act, but it's also about sharing it through vulnerability. And the full moon is square that Mars and Uranus. Again, Mars is about facing your fears. So facing any inner fears or resistances about putting yourself out there more through creative self-expression. It doesn't narrowly have to be confined to the arts, but that is a beautiful way of doing it. Now, of course, we can use Leo for negative with the shadow side. It is about a fire sign, which ultimately is about being assertive. Square the Mars, an assertive planet, fighting for rebellion. We add a little bit of the very passionate Leo, moon in Leo, We add that to the fighting rebellion, and it can lead to self-righteousness, righteous indignation, being very arrogant. The dark side of Leo is sheer pride. These are qualities we want to avoid with Leo, and we'll see a heck of a lot of that as well during this full moon. But the high end is joy and innocence. Those are very high consciousness emotions. Through creativity, through heartfelt emotional connection, we can experience these things. Jesus in the Bible, one of his quotes was something like, "You must become like a little child to enter the kingdom of heaven." Here we find the archetype of the child associated with Leo, that in the moment playfulness. That's what it's about. That's what we're trying to achieve with the reconnection to that innocence. And I just got Jesus on the brain here. I've been reading a book by Dolores Cannon. I haven't read her material before. It was very interesting. It's a book called Jesus and the Essenes. And for those of you who don't know, Dolores Cannon, she's no longer with us, I believe, but she used to be a hypnotherapist. And she would regress people into past lives. And she learned so much information about other cultures and such through these past life regressions she did with people. Anyway, she found somebody she regressed somebody to a life they had right around the time Jesus was born. Somebody who was an Essene, which is a culture that was obliterated by the Romans around 70 AD or so. But they were just a beautiful community that lived right near somewhere there by the Dead Sea, I think, in the desert there. And they were very hermit, reclusive, very small, tight-knit community. And they saw themselves as the keeper of knowledge. And this past life this person had was actually one of the teachers of Jesus, as when Jesus was just a little boy. Those lost years from the Bible that are never talked about. Well, you get some very inside information of not only what that time was like, what that culture was like, but what Jesus was like as a little boy, which was very calm, just piercing wisdom, just very obviously way ahead of his years, needless to say. But the way this person described his relationship to Jesus and how Jesus actually was reminded me of elements of the Bible, which I haven't looked at in a while. And it just reminds me so much of Leo energy, fifth sign, fifth house of your chart as well, fifth phase symbolism, returning to a place of innocence, of calm, of joy, of interconnectedness, of love. Leo is very heart-centered. It's of the heart. And to me, it feels much more like Christ consciousness or unity consciousness. As a Leo, you're not guaranteed that, but that's the ultimate goal with strong Leo energy in your chart, is unity consciousness. We add the complication that we are born into a dimension of reality, which is very much about polarity consciousness, light, dark, good, bad, up, down, duality. So we're trying to return to where we came from before we were born, before we passed through the veil of amnesia, forgot where we came from spiritually, forgot where we came from union connected to all, love and light and bliss and unicorn farts and rainbows. That's where we came from. And then we came down here descending into the dense reality of planet Earth. Why? So we can learn, grow, and evolve. And hopefully by describing these symbols a little bit, we've discussed how we can work with this energy we're currently experiencing for the betterment of ourselves, for the betterment of other people, so we can create a better life and a better human future. So those are the core evolutionary intentions, with the goal always being to expand our consciousness.